Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds. Today we're talking Longsword with the changes that have come in Title Update 2.5 or the August Update, whichever you want to call it. With this update, of course, we've got some pretty nice changes for Longswords we'll discuss in a moment, but importantly, the new Talisman system, which with various combinations and options can push our builds even further than before. Our effective raw with the two sets we're going to be showing today is noticeably up, so it is indeed a power increase if you get the RNG talismans that you need. Before we get into it, as usual, I want to give Josh his credit, who put in a lot of work to understand the talismans as well as what's possible or even reasonable, and put together the builds based on the math that we'll be discussing today. Once again, I'd like to thank the data miner of this talisman information for us to even start considering, which is DTL Nor, who did the data mining for, say, the Sunbreak and Rise versions of the talisman system, so it's great to have that information again. Let's discuss the small changes for Longsword that were important for this August patch. There is a noticeable bit of input delay in Wilds, but a weapon like Longsword, it just deals with it poorly, because a large amount of the weapon is of course about landing successful parries with your various counters. This is the most important when it comes to something like special sheath countering, which has a lot of setup involved and should work consistently. If you're dealing with a monster like Seragios who never stops attacking at times, you want those inputs to work, or you're putting down a barrel bomb and trying to quick counter it. You want it to actually work, and sometimes it just wouldn't. So, in the patch notes we have this: reduced delay between inputs, and the action of chaining into EI Spirit Slash is addressing exactly that. Further, they extended the window for the Spirit Slash to shore this mechanic up even more. And I do think this reads as a bit of a heavy-handed solution to a wider problem that is input delay, but in the case of Longsword here, it makes those questionable moments a lot rarer. Your parries are going to be easier, and input delay will be less for concern. This does mean you can't complain about input delay or whatever when you missed that parry anymore. But personally, I lagged, you distracted me, and I was deceived by outside forces, so I can't be blamed. Either way, it's a nice update for us. And with this build update, we've got stronger build options. Let's start with the Artian weapon setup, which remains a familiar concept. You have an Artian weapon with the 4 attack boost for the reinforced bonus and just 1 sharpness boost. That is because it's a nice weapon that can maximize critical boost, but also maintain razor sharp and a bonus level of handicraft if you can get it to help your sharpness. So you don't need to commit any more to sharpness boost in the reinforcements. In the creation of the weapon though, you're going to want to commit to attack and all that as we've just shown, but go for a bit of element as your bonus. Like we have this fire one here, I use this against fire weak targets, then swap to say this thunder one against thunder weak targets. But beyond that, we're not committing to element in any way. If you instead do not want to worry about having 5 different element longswords for different targets and swapping around, and you want just ease of life, then of course you can do the old raw paralysis combo, or maybe blast instead if you prefer, and just ignore elements. But you will have less DPS potential because of that. There aren't exactly a lot of monsters that wouldn't benefit from a little bit of extra element bonus. In regards to those offensive decorations then, you're going to want a total of 5 critical boosts through your offensive decorations. So that's 2 slots given up for that. And then the final slot, you want 3 levels of razor sharp. If you can get the incredible 1 extra level of handicraft on top, that'll be really nice. But any other bonus that's relevant, if you don't have that, it'll be fine. Today we have 2 main sets for you to consider. There is the latent power set, which has more effective raw overall, but as usual, some people just don't like the ups and downs of latent power. Essentially, it triggers after you take enough damage or enough time passes in the hunt, then you're extra strong, but then it fades, and then after a reset period, you can do it again. So some people dislike the fact that if you're not permanently maximizing your damage, latent power has quite aggressive swings. If you want something that's going to have less effective raw, but will be more consistent with this output, then we have a second build for exactly that. Right, starting with the latent power build, which has more effective raw then, let's run down how you're going to run that. We have 3 pieces of the Ray Gamma set from Arch-Tempered Ray for the helmet, chest, and gloves. Then the remaining 2 pieces of waist and legs go to Legiacris, both in beta. Our final slot goes to one of the new talismans, in this case 3 attack boost and 1 weakness exploit. However, you could have a talisman that has the attack boost and a level of burst, or adrenaline rush in fact. All it really does is change up what you're decorating in your armor based on that bonus level. The attack boost is purely going to give us more effective raw, but you could get something like razor sharp here instead, which then could let you put attack boost in your weapon. You just want to get as close to the same skill list as possible. Attack boost is important at level 4 though, which we're able to achieve here thanks to the 1 level of 1 offensive slot in a rarity 8 charm because of that percent bonus to attack, that little bit of 2% on top. This is more of an ideal situation. Anything you can do to get as close to this as possible will do well. Anyway, using these decorations, we achieve this skill list. We've got our full critical boost, the 4 attack boost, the full razor sharp, and that bonus bit of handicraft. And then we got full weakness exploit, counter strike, max might, the quick sheath obviously, 4 latent power to work with, a bit of evade extender as a bonus, the 1 adrenaline rush, and that's the main important stuff for the skill list. In terms of your bonuses from the set then, we have 3 pieces of Ray, so we got Thunderous Roar 1, which is going to extend how long latent power lasts. We have Lord Soul because of 3 arch-tempered pieces, giving us Guts Tenacity. This takes your base roar of the weapon and increases it by 5%, until you take a lethal hit where it gives you a cart dodge, and then instead you get boosted defense and resistance instead. But we're not aiming to be carted, it's just bonus damage. Otherwise, we have the 2-piece of the Legaicra set, giving us Azure Bolt 1 for boosts of affinity and extra thunder damage as a little burst. So again, you aim to have as close to this skill list as possible using your own charm, your own RNG talisman. But we're trying to show the ideal build, so let's discuss the math for that to show you how effective this really is. Our base roll begins with the Artian weapon, 225. With our setup, we have Guts Tenacity and 4 attack, which gives us a total of 7% bonus to our base roll, bringing us to 240.75. Then we get flat numbers from Counter Strike 3, Adrenaline Rush 1, and Attack 4, bringing us to 283.75. Multiply that by 32% for the white sharpness, bringing us to 374.55. Then we have 96% reliable affinity from the Maximum Mai, the base Artian weakness exploit, and the Legaicra's 2-piece with 40% uptime assumption, and latent power 4 with 66% uptime assumption. So almost 100% affinity in a reliable manner, and with 5 crit boost, that's a big damage increase. But with 96% affinity, it's less 40% damage increase, but more like 38.4. So we multiply that by our last number, and that brings us to 518 effective roll. Which, by the way, our maximum latent power set last time was 511. So it's a 7 effective roar increase with the new talisman options we have in this update, which certainly is fantastic when our effective roar is already so high. Each point makes a difference at this point. But you might be someone that just doesn't want to deal with latent power. We all have those moments where we just can't deal damage and latent power doesn't get maximized, and so that higher effective roar doesn't really mean anything. If you'd rather just have consistent output for your more reasonable gameplay, then we've got the set for you. This set using no latent power then uses Legaicra's helm in beta, Zo's sheer chest in beta, Seragio's gloves in beta, Legaicra's waist in beta for the 2-piece, and finally Mizutsune's greaves in beta, alongside the same talisman I just showed in the other set, 3 attack boost and 1 weakness exploit. Ideally, you'll have this talisman, or better, or your secondary skill will instead of weakness exploit be 1 agitator, and you'll just swap your decorations around to achieve the same skill list. Again, if you can't quite do that good, maybe you drop the attack boost amounts, or you bring razor sharp off of your offensive decoration off the weapon and have it here on your talisman, and then put attack boost on your weapon. Whatever way you balance it out, we strive to achieve the closest to this skill list. So speaking of the skill list, here are the decorations we use to achieve this skill list. The same full critical boost, 4 attack boost, the full razor sharp and handicraft. Then we got full weakness exploit, counter strike, maximum might, the quick sheath of course. Then 3 agitator total, 2 adrenaline rush, 2 burst. And that's the skill list we achieve and aim for. With this we only have the 1 set bonus, which is Leviathan's Fury. Again for a bit of affinity and bonus thunder damage where it may be relevant to you. Let's consider the math to compare the set. Once again, we start with 225 base raw, but then we're just getting the 2% bonus from attack 4, with no guts tenacity in this case, bringing us to 229.5. Then we got a lot of flat numbers from burst, adrenaline, counter strike, the attack, and agitator 3 with a 65% uptime assumption, bringing us to 295.5. Multiply that by 32% for white sharpness, bringing us to 390.06. We have 76% assumed affinity this time. From weakness exploit max might, the base Artian, then we have Legaicra's 2-piece with 40% assumed uptime again, and now Agitator 3 with 65% assumed uptime, bringing us again to 76% affinity. Once again we have 5 crit boost, which is a 40% damage bonus on those crits, but it's 76% affinity. So it's more like 30.4% damage increase on average. Multiply that by the last number then, and that brings us to 509 effective roll. That is 9 less effective raw than the latent power set, but again, it's reliable output that's not going to go up and down when your latent power is active or feels bad when it's not. So this may appeal to you. Plus the highest effective raw we could achieve without latent power in the previous version brought us to 494 effective raw. So it's a 15 effective raw increase for this set, making this more comfy set even better than ever. So yeah, Either set that you pick, it should feel extremely strong. Over 500 effective raw no matter which way you go. That's a noticeable increase even over the recent TU2 versions, which is pretty crazy for one update. Obviously the talismans have had a major impact on this, and to get the talismans that make this possible, it's going to take some time. So as I've said, you use whatever best combination you can to achieve the closest skill list to what we've shown today as you can. Things may change as well as we get further into the new system and learn what's actually possible versus reasonable, and what truly gives you the most bang for your buck. But for now, we think this is a really strong start. And it certainly helps that for longsword, the EI counter feels so much more reliable now. I'm really enjoying it. Anyway, for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.